Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the QB List kickoff live stream. I'm your host, Aaron Rader. With me, as always, is my friend and co-writer, Matt Dean. Matt, how you doing today?
I feel free because now I can just worry about the Masters today. My fantasy team that has had people on IR all year is finally out of the playoff contention. So I can just give advice now and focus on DFS and not worrying about if Austin Eckler is going to be back this week, next week, or ever. So,
yeah, Matt's pretty much given up all hope on fantasy this year, so he's just
in the one league,
he's just kind of getting into the Masters coverage today and not worrying about football. But I don't blame him. It is a stressful game. Getting into the news here, COVID. Luckily, no positives per Adam Schefter this morning. There's one Vikings player test that's being rerun, but they play tomorrow. So it looks like it'll be a little bit before we know the story there. So, but luckily, no other COVID news, even as the numbers seem to go up around the country. But that's another story. Got a lot of injury news, though. Lots of running backs. The biggest one, obviously, is Christian McCaffrey. He's out yet again. Mike Davis is playing Tampa Bay. How do you feel about Mike Davis in that matchup?
I think it depends on your situation. I mean, we've seen him obviously do well, like an RB1, and we've seen him, hasn't put up RB1 numbers since week 5 against Atlanta. So, and that was 3 of those games were without McCaffrey. So, I mean, I think the range of outcomes are wide, but I think given the situation, if you're in the main slate in DFS, like we'll talk about later, he's a lock. I think that is a must play. I think he's going to get volume, but it all depends on what Tom Brady we get. Because if it's not a good Tom Brady, then I don't know. I don't see Carolina having to be in passing situations as much, I guess you could say. And so he's definitely much better as a pass catcher. So wide range of outcomes. He's, I guess, a flex play for me, RB2, I guess. So you're probably starting him if you got him, but I think DFS for sure he's a lock, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, DFS value, DraftKings sitting at $4,000 in the Sunday slate, at least, as you said. So
yeah, I don't know who does the DraftKings like dollar amounts, but I think they left a bye week in their lineup this week. They're not paying attention.
Mike Davis for 4K is, I mean, that's a steal. You don't get a starting running back that's tight end money, really. Another big name we do have one question real quick before we. Jarensburg 24 says, need 3 wide receivers, 2 running back, 1 flex. Diggs, Juju, Jefferson, Cooks. Well, right off the bat, I'm going Diggs, Juju, Cooks. I'm leaving Jefferson out. 2 running backs, Edmonds, Duke, Dobbins.
Why are you leaving Jefferson out?
I don't like his matchup against Chicago, but the guy that our writer that wrote that game this week said he likes that matchup because all the coverage is going to be on Thielen. But I don't know. They're like top 3 in points allowed to wide receivers.
Yeah, the only thing is Cooks is in some bad weather, and he's more of a deep ball kind of guy. So that's why I'm leaning towards fading Cooks in that.
Yeah, I think even with the high winds, I think Cooks will still get short passes and stuff. I think that helps him more than it helps Fuller.
Yeah, I think I mean, out of that group, I think I'll just sit. I don't like Edmonds or Dobbins, but I guess I'll sit Dobbins because Mark Henry's back. I mean, Mark Ingram is supposed to be back.
Yeah, I'm going Diggs, Juju, Cooks, Edmonds, Duke, and then sitting Dobbins.
Yeah, I would sit Cooks, but for Jefferson, that's the only place.
But he also gets a flex, so I guess Dobbins would be. So Jefferson could still be in his flex, right?
Oh, yeah. So the only person I'm sitting out of that group is Dobbins.
Yep, me too. Got a couple more questions. Mark Oval. Should I start T. Higgins or Marquise Brown? I say T. Higgins since Marquise is playing in New England.
Yeah, I just pulling up that Cincy game. There's going to be, that's another wind game. I don't know how high the wind is. I know it's affected the over-under a little bit as far as total points goes for the betting line. So, but Marquise Brown is just not seeing any production. So I think I'd still rather just take the chance on T. Higgins, even though he's playing against Pittsburgh.
And then Andy Patton says Jordan Howard or Henry Ruggs in non-PPR. Non-PPR, probably go Jordan Howard just on the chance he gets a touchdown.
Yeah, Jordan Howard, you're looking at single-digit yards and possible 2 touchdowns, which is crazy. But, yeah, I don't like either of the options for non-PPR, honestly. But if you have to pick one, Howard is good.
And then the last one we got here, Mike Williams or Antonio Brown, or hope that Allen Robinson actually plays on Monday. So the latest news I read, Allen Robinson is expected to play. What I did was in one of our leagues is left him in my flex and picked up Mooney. I don't know if Mooney's available in your league, but pick up someone like him or the Ryan Nall, that running back that's starting for Chicago since Montgomery's out, and just flex one of those if Robinson doesn't play. But Mike Williams is not a bad – if you want to go ahead and play Mike Williams instead, I would leave Antonio Brown on the bench. But if you were to play, somebody today and Mike Williams was your choice, I wouldn't be opposed to
that. Yeah, I think I like your strategy. If Allen Robinson plays, you don't want him on the bench, even with the upside that Antonio Brown or Mike Williams could bring. So I think I'm going with your strategy and just expecting that he plays tomorrow night.
All right. Well, that's a lot of questions early. I like it. Back to the injury side of things. Like we said, Kenny Golladay is out again. It seems like he's only played like 2 games this season. I don't know how many he's actually played, but it seems like we're talking about him every week being injured. They're playing Washington, so it's not a great matchup, but Marvin Jones, I have a hard time leaving him on the bench in the few leagues I had Marvin Jones in. So I went ahead and threw him in there in most leagues. It was really down between him and Higgins, and with that news we're reading about the 30-mile-an-hour sustained winds and stuff, just kind of worried to play any Browns pass catchers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly more on Hooper there than any other pass catcher. So,
speaking of, Nick Chubb's back today. What do we expect he'll do? I don't really know.
I think you're hoping for 15 touches, and they're mostly all going to be on the ground because, his pass catching involvement's not really there since Hunt's there. So, but I think, you have to expect he just goes back to his normal load. I don't think they would bring him back and limit him. So,
yeah, I would expect 10 to 12 touches more realistically, just it being his first game back. But you never know, and it sounds like the ground game is going to be even more of a factor today. So, moving on here, we got Kyle Allen. He's probably not going to be back for the rest of the season. His injury looked pretty rough. Gardner Minshew could be back next week, but looks like he might have his job taken over by this rookie, Luton. How do you say his last name?
Pretty sure it's Luton, yeah.
Yeah, so, he looked pretty good last week. Of course, that could change this week. Their matchup's pretty tough. And I think next week they've got Pittsburgh. Is that correct?
I have to look it up.
They got Green Bay today, and then next week they got Pittsburgh. So, that's 2 pretty rough opponents for the rookie. So, I don't know. Maybe Minshew comes back next week. The Jags also have Laviska Shenault out, so.
Yeah. We got another question rolling in. In a tough spot with Elena Cellini. In a tough spot with RB2, thoughts on Hasty or Malcolm Brown? I don't know. Neither, but you have to pick one, I guess. I mean, I feel like neither have done anything in recent memory here. What are your thoughts?
Well, considering I'm starting McKinnon in our main league, Hasty will probably go for like 150. No, I mean, I don't love either one of these, but I think Malcolm Brown probably has the better. I don't love the matchup against the Saints.
She said the sound would be fun. Yeah, I mean, I think the Rams are going to be passing a lot. I mean, last week Jared Goff threw the ball 61 times against Miami, and
Seattle has one of the worst secondaries there is. So,
and I don't peg Malcolm Brown as their pass catching back. He's got like a little over 10 receptions on the entire year, 2 last week. I mean, Malcolm Brown, you're looking at like 10 carries for 50 yards maybe, because you know that it's going to be, I mean, that's one of the, I think, higher scoring games expected on the slate. So Hasty is, I mean, he had 4 carries last week. And it's hard to bank on Shanahan doing anything that's expected. So, you know, look around, see if there's a like Tremaine Pope or Kalen Ballage available. I'd probably put Ballage over Pope, but if Ballage is available, I like him over those two. So maybe a pivot if something's available.
Yeah, and I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, starting McKinnon and Henderson. So it's hard to trust Ronald Jones. I mean, he's sitting on my bench over those. I picked those two over him,
yes,
so I don't know.
To answer your question, yes, I do like Ballage over those two. I don't know if you agree with that, but
yeah, I like Ballage over those two. So yeah, we got. Speaking of, Justin Jackson kind of ruined you and a few of our other.
Yeah, who hasn't ruined me this year? In that league,
Justin Jackson got hurt. You said he got hurt before warm-ups. I saw that he got hurt.
I think it was like play 2.
Yeah, he got hurt on the opening drive, so he was barely in there, which led to Kalen Ballage, which is the strangest. I mean, that just sums up 2020. Kalen Ballage was almost, left for dead, and now he had like, 70 yards and a touchdown or something.
Yeah.
Now he's got a revenge game against Miami.
Yeah, if you believe in the revenge game narrative. I already got burned by one of those this year too, so Le'Veon Bell against the Jets. So I'm not making any revenge games anymore.
And then, of course, the Giants are without Devontae Freeman again. David Johnson's hurt. Looks like he got put on IR, did he not?
Yeah, he's out. So Duke Johnson becomes a good play just based on volume and the weather.
Carlos Hyde's out again, so DJ Dallas is going to be their starter with Chris Carson also out. Don't love the matchup against the Rams, though, so maybe fade him.
DJ Dallas is a no-go for me just because, you're banking on touchdowns, and it's not a good thing.
And then the Niners are without Deebo Samuel, Tevin Coleman, and Mostert again, which, we kind of already talked about the Hasty and McKinnon. Shanahan claims, he said this over this last weekend, that McKinnon was going to get, quote unquote, a lot of work, but coming from a Shanahan, you never know what that means. He may just not even get the ball. It could be Hasty all the way, but don't love either one of their matchups for them with playing the Saints. Saints are like top 3 or 4 in points allowed to running backs. So, or you know what I mean. Giving up the least amount of points to running backs.
Yeah.
But yeah, also Joe Mixon's out. I would say Gio Bernard's a good play, but they're playing the Steelers, who have arguably had one of the best defenses in the league this year.
I think he's still a good play.
He could get a lot of dump offs.
He's going to see upwards of 18 to 20 touches. So, I mean, in DFS especially, he's a great play, I think, because where else are you going to get that much production from that price tag?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is against them. So, anyways, in redraft leagues, I think it's harder to play him, but I know that you have better options.
And then lastly, Irv Smith's out, but a lot of people probably weren't starting Irv Smith, even though he did have 2 touchdowns last week. And David Montgomery's also out, who hasn't been great this year regardless. But so now it's Ryan Nall, who I would give a look. I mean, I'm starting him in one league, deeper league. They're playing Minnesota. He had like 13 points last week, so I'm okay starting him.
Fine with that. I'm not doing it, but
But yeah, that about sums it up. Kenyon Drake and Matt Breida, I know they were questionable, and it was looking like Breida was more doubtful last time I looked. Kenyon Drake, it was looking like he was going to actually play. So
yeah, Kenyon Drake's expected to play.
But we will talk a little bit about, as we already said, there's not, as far as I know, there's only one game that's got inclement weather. It's going to be that Houston and Cleveland game. 30-mile-hour winds, sustained supposedly, which is insane. So maybe think twice about your pass catchers in that game.
Yeah, it's especially the downfield guys. That's why I was saying with Cooks in his game. I think I was listening to this on my drive just a little bit ago, and I think the over/under for both teams in the Houston game went down like 3 or 4 points each. So, looking at the Vegas odds, that was a good indicator of which games they feel like will be most affected by weather based on what they're seeing. So, just a little tip there if you're doing DFS or season long.
And now, with most people's trade deadlines, I know this past week a lot of people's were kind of different, but we just passed the standard one. You guys may have another week or two or whatever extended trade deadline, but so without the buy or sell, we're going to do kind of this segment called Cut or Keep. And again, T.Y. Hilton is headlining this section. He put up 8 points this past week. Michael Pittman's coming on. He had like 119 yards, I think. So if there's any pass catcher that's worth owning moving forward, it's probably going to be Pittman or Naheem Hines for the Colts. And at this point, I'm seeing Hilton getting cut in multiple leagues. And I didn't want to cut him in our league, but there's just some things I got to cover with one or two more buys coming. So
yeah,
I had to do what I had to do. But you tell me they've got good matchups coming up, but even in his best matchups this year, he's only had single digits. So he's just not really someone I can depend on in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, T.Y. Hilton is basically, if you want to keep him on the bench, fine. But I don't think he's even worth a bye week filler right now. You get better production from some of these other guys that we're talking about, just dart throws.
I was looking at it. He has I was comparing him to Higgins, who I was going to get, but I had no money left in our league, and the guy that's in first place paid $5 to get him back after dropping him. But Higgins only had like 5 or 7 points less than him on the season, and I'm just like, okay, that kind of makes my decision for me. T.Y. Hilton's basically, besides that 1 week he got hurt, he's played every game. So, it's just I wish he was. I don't know if it's more him. A lot of people say he just lost it, but I think a lot of it has to do with Phillip Rivers isn't who he used to be, and it's not really a passing offense. It's more a defense and run game style team. So I don't know. Maybe we're wrong about him, but he'll come on towards the end here. But the second one is Le'Veon Bell, who I know you're pretty much ready to cut yourself. So I don't know. What do you think about Le'Veon Bell? Is there any chance that he can redeem himself here?
I don't see a path to it just because, I mean, even CEH, if CEH doesn't get a touchdown, he's useless, in the game because, I mean, their volume is just not there for either guy, and even less so for Le'Veon Bell right now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm super low on CEH at the moment, but I'm also super low on Le'Veon Bell. In anything smaller than a 16 or 14 teamer, I don't think you keep Le'Veon Bell for any real reason unless you have guys like, you have Eckler and McCaffrey both on IR right now, and you just have extra bench spots. But yeah, I'm on the cut train there.
And then third on here, I've got Devin Singletary. He's been losing snaps to Zach Moss and has put up like single digits the last 3 weeks, I think. So I don't really know where Devin Singletary stands. We'll see if today in that Arizona game should be pretty high scoring. See if he gets involved in the passing game or not. But what do you think about Devin Singletary?
Yeah, I don't think he's a cut simply because we've already seen Zach Moss have some injury issues this year. And whoever the starting running back is in that offense is going to have a good chance to get goal line work just because, they do go deep a lot, but we've seen Diggs and others fall down inside the 5 several times this year. Like last week, I think Zach Moss saved his day with like a 2-yard touchdown. So I'm keeping him, not cutting, but not starting either.
I think we got one question coming in here. Let me see. Ben Brown says, Le'Veon Bell, from revenge game to cut train, the mighty have truly fallen.
Yeah, Ben, I don't have a good track record for calling Le'Veon Bell.
I was thinking about that last night because I was thinking about the year you talked me into taking him with my number 1 pick over Todd Gurley. And thank God I had James Conner that year because I would have been screwed. But luckily, James Conner led me to the championship. Le'Veon Bell almost derailed me.
Yeah, you well, then I think later that year I traded you someone for Le'Veon Bell. So
yeah, you probably I think you did.
That helped you to your championship. So if you could shoot me I'll send you my Venmo. You can send me some money. But yeah, I should be banned from talking about Le'Veon Bell for the rest of my life.
Well, if he keeps playing like he's playing, you may not ever have to.
That's true.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I know you guys in our main league, in our group chat, were talking a lot of crap about MVS, and then he had this past week, he only had 4 targets and he only had 2 receptions, but they were both touchdowns. So is he a guy that you put on your bench, moving forward, or do you just think it's just kind of a blip on the radar here with Lazard possibly coming back?
Yeah, blip on the radar, especially with the win this week. You're not going to start him because he's a deep ball guy. So, yeah, and when Lazard gets back, he's man.
Plus, he's got to play Indy and Chicago after Jacksonville this week, so those are 2 pretty tough matchups. But yeah, it's probably just more of a blip on the radar game for him. Another deep ball wide receiver, Henry Ruggs. He's a guy that I really liked coming into the season. Thought he had, him and Justin Jefferson had 2 of the highest upsides for rookie receivers. Is he a guy you think is just more of a dynasty type thing or keeper type player to keep, or you think in redraft leagues he serves a spot on your bench for the playoffs?
No. He has 1 game this year where he has double-digit points, and he has 2 games this year where he has more than 3 targets. So last week we saw a donut. He got 10 rushing yards, so 1 point. But even the game he scored 22 in, it was on 2 catches and 3 targets. So he's like a less volume Deshaun Jackson. Whenever, Deshaun Jackson back in the day, you would get 6 targets, 4 catches, and some games 120 yards, and a touchdown just because he catches a couple long balls. Well, Ruggs is getting, 3 targets and connect. He gets, we saw 2 weeks ago, 2 for 35. Week 1, 3 for 55. Week 2, 1 for 4. So, yeah, that's not something that I'm ever starting.
Another guy who's only had double digits once this year is Tyler Higbee. And, given the state of tight ends and, injuries at the position with Zach Ertz or, just really the only guy you've been able to trust this year has been Travis Kelce. And him and Darren Waller are probably the top 2. And, Tyler Higbee was the best tight end last year in the fantasy playoffs, but looks like he has not been able to continue that momentum. Is he someone that you would keep on your roster here, or you think he's just inconsistent to where you can't trust him down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a 16-teamer, and he's been gone for me for a while. He had one game where he scored 3 touchdowns, of course, and he was on my bench. That's just how this year's gone. But, yeah, I think it's not worth it to keep him. There are truthers out there. I know I see them on Twitter that think Tyler Higbee's the, second coming of prime Jason Witten or something. But I'm just not seeing it with how many routes Gerald Everett's running right now.
Mm-hmm. Ben Brown's got a question for DFS. He says pick a running back 2 for these values. Mike Davis is 6,700 in this league, so he's out of the question.
Yeah, don't pay up Mike Davis.
I mean, out of those, I might have to say Gordon.
I'd rather pay $300 more for Fournette. If you're going a Tampa Bay back, let me pull up. I actually have I have the old DraftKings open here. Let me tell you. Go. Do you already have Dave or Duke Johnson in? Because he's 5K. That's who I'll pick.
Yeah, that'd be my pick too.
And then after that, I would go Gio Bernard 5,400, just based on how much volume he's going to get. So.
Then Dylan Burr says start 2 of Fuller, Cooks, Landry, Jay Brown, and Standard. Also have Watson, so worried about loading up on Houston. Yeah, I'd be worried about that as well. I wouldn't start both Fuller and Cooks if you're going to start. I would definitely put Landry in there. Well, he's got weather issues too. So
yeah, it's Standard. So basically, you're wanting who's going to score the touch, who has the highest chance of scoring a touchdown. I think that's probably Jarvis Landry and Will Fuller, I would think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I hate to leave Cooks or John Brown out, but I mean, John Brown, you never know. He could get loose for a deep one too, and they're playing Arizona.
Yeah.
Pretty tough. Diggs will probably be shadowed by Patrick Peterson.
I feel like Fuller and Landry have the higher chance of touchdowns.
Yeah, I'd go Fuller and Landry, and if you don't, if you're worried about the weather with either one of them, just maybe put John Brown in for Fuller or something since you already have Watson. But PPR, Matt Tavernite says PPR Edmonds or Dallas. Probably Dallas just because we know he's the number 1. He's not really, unless he's splitting with Travis Homer. Edmonds is going to have Kenyon Drake back, and they're playing Buffalo, so I don't love that.
Yeah, I don't like Dallas because, he's going to be running into Aaron Donald, but I think it's definitely a coin flip. I think they're priced similarly, I believe, in DFS. I know this probably isn't a DFS question, but no, DJ Dallas is significantly cheaper. I was going to say Edmonds off the jump. If it's DFS, I'll go Dallas. If it's not, I would lean Edmonds. I know it doesn't help that we just split here, but I just don't see Drake playing that significant of a role when he was questionable coming into the game. So,
and I had two more just real quick cut or keep I wanted to talk about that people probably have already given up on anyway. But Gardner Minshew and Jimmy G. Jimmy G. I'm not even sure he's going to come back this season, and if he is, it could be a while before he plays. I've seen mixed reports on his injury, so. But he's not played great anyway this year. So if you haven't moved on already, try to find another quarterback. Tua is probably still out there in a lot of leagues. But Gardner Minshew may be back next week, but he's not really a guy you're holding on to either unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. So I'd say cut on both of those.
yeah, agreed.
But moving on, we're going to talk. We got one more question here before we go to DFS. For the Community Guillotine League, loaded at wide receiver, who should I set for DeAndre Hopkins? Diggs, Metcalf, or Woods? Would say Woods, but that matchup is so juicy. Yeah, I wouldn't sit Woods because he's playing Seattle, right?
With the options, yeah, I would sit Woods.
Think so? I would. I mean, I know you love Metcalf, but
Diggs, Metcalf, and Hopkins are all. I mean, they're top 5 to 7 wide receivers in fantasy. So I don't care who Metcalf's going against. I mean, if it's true that Jalen Ramsey's not shadowing him, which he says he's not, and I mean, are you really passing on 40-point upside for 20-point upside? I'm not.
Well, we'll split on this one because just based on the matchups, I mean, I would sit Metcalf, but I mean, it is hard to sit Metcalf after what he's been doing. So I can't blame you for. I just know I won't sit Hopkins or Diggs. That's for sure. So
yeah.
But yeah, DFS. Speaking of Tua, he's 5,600 a day. He is without Preston Williams and Myles Gaskin, but 5,600 not too bad against the Chargers, and the Chargers defense has been pretty rough lately against quarterbacks. So I think Tua could have a decent day this week.
Agreed. I think there's a lot of decent quarterback plays, to be honest with you. What did you say Tua's price is at?
5,600.
Yeah, I think that's
Drew Lock's
good play. Even though we haven't seen like a ton of Tua yet. Because his first game, I mean, 90 yards. Second game, he really, broke out, and he added a decent rushing floor as well. I definitely like him over the guys at the current price there. I may actually like Drew Lock more against Vegas. I don't know. It's a toss up there. Pay a little more. You get guy. I think I'm out on Burrow this week because weather in Pittsburgh. At that price range, yeah, I think Tua is if you're going like punt on quarterback, he's probably my lowest. Him and Lock are the options for punt at quarterback.
Yeah, I like Drew Lock even better at $100 cheaper. He's got a better matchup. He's been pretty hot these last few games too. So Alex Tran has a question for us. Brandon Cooks or Dallas Goedert in PPR? I know the weather's an issue in the Houston game. I don't love putting a tight end at flex. I mean, Dallas Goedert had a good matchup against Dallas a few weeks ago and only had like 1.9 or something. So I don't know. I'd still go Cooks here, but
yeah, I think I would as well. I think isn't Alshon Jeffrey playing?
Yeah.
So that's another competition for targets. Yeah, I think I'm going Brandon Cooks as well until we see how and Miles Sanders is back. So he's going to get more volume than Scott was, theoretically.
But yeah, so Drew Lock and Tua are our quarterback picks, unless Matt's got another one.
Well, I think that, there's kind of tiers on quarterbacks, Kyler Murray is somebody that paying up for is has been worth it so far. I mean, he's 2 straight games with 40, 3 of his last 4 with 30 plus. He has a solid rushing floor. He's going against Buffalo. We know it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm not getting Aaron Rodgers. I'm not getting Russell Wilson. Josh Allen, again, he's actually 500 cheaper than Murray. Good play there. There is this kind of tier in the middle here that has like Herbert, Goff. Let's just say Herbert and Goff. We have Herbert against Miami, Goff against Seattle. Both pretty much the same price. So how are you feeling between those two guys?
You said Herbert or Goff?
Yeah.
Obviously I love Goff's matchup. And as good as Herbert's been, Miami's defense can always they scored quite a bit of points off turnovers. So I think I like Jared Goff easily more than I do Herbert. Jarensburg 24 has another question for us. In flex, would you start Jefferson, Cooks, Dobbins, or Jamal Williams?
Jefferson.
I would go Jefferson or Cooks. I really would probably go Cooks, but if you're concerned about the weather, go Jefferson. I wouldn't start Dobbins or Jamal. So we talked about Mike Davis earlier. If you're playing the Sunday only DraftKings, he's like 4K. And I don't know, like Matt said, I don't know who messed up there, but I think someone messed up. And if you can get that, take it, because you don't get a starting running back for that price. As far as some other running backs, I've got Antonio Gibson at 5,600 and Duke Johnson at 5,000. Obviously, Duke Johnson at 5K is one of the better guys you can get out there.
Yeah, I think based on not based on like talent, but based on volume he's going to get, and with the weather, shorter depth of targets is going to be probably the go-to for Deshaun Watson with less downfield shots. So Duke Johnson is going to be – he's going to be highly owned. So, he's not like don't feel like you're getting away with one here. Same with Mike Davis. Mike Davis on that slate where he's 4,000 is probably going to be like upwards of 90% owned. So these are just guys you can use to get extra money elsewhere. So great options. I'm lower on Antonio Gibson just because it seems like Alex Smith is like a different style. He threw, I don't know the target total, but J.D. McKissick had 9 catches last week.
I was going to say, I think I might like McKissick more than – I don't know what his price is, but I think I would start him before I would start Antonio for the price.
Mm-hmm.
As far as wide receivers, only had one this week. I had Curtis Samuel at 4,900 with Christian McCaffrey hurt. I don't know, maybe he'll get involved in the rushing game again, but not a great matchup with Tampa Bay. But for 4,900 and what Curtis Samuel's been doing, he might be worth a flyer.
Yeah, and in our league that I have virtually no shot at playoffs in, I've been watching him score 20 plus on my bench for 3 weeks now. And so, but still that matchup is scary, and it's, he has been playing more as a gadget player up until last week. He got like a pretty good target share. My favorite play there is still Robbie Anderson, and I think in DFS, Robbie Anderson is going to be probably lower owned than Curtis Samuel is.
I think he was 6,100 if I remember.
Yeah, he is. And so, you're paying more there. That's a different tier if you're talking about saving. I actually like, for a big cost saver, Jakeem Grant, who's 3K, and they have and Preston Williams is out, so he should get more run. And I think his upside is the same as Samuel at all, but I think he has double-digit upside and price per dollar that's like pretty solid. If you can get, 12-point upside from a 3,000 player, then you can really build your lineup in other places.
Yeah, and if you're paying up for tight end this week, Darren Waller, 5,900 is the pick for you. They're playing the Broncos, so I think he's got a decent chance to score here. And like we said, he's been the most consistent guy, really, past Travis Kelce. But as far as a cheap option alternative at tight end, I've got Logan Thomas at 3,300. Especially as much as Alex Smith checks it down, like you said, McKissick had like 9 catches. Logan Thomas, I think, had his highest target total last week at 6. So we got one question coming in from True Polar Bear: Mike Davis or Duke Johnson? That is tough because I like Duke Johnson's matchup a lot better.
I'm going DFS and season long. I'm still probably going Mike Davis just on talent and price in DFS. Unless it's the Sunday Monday slate, then Mike Davis is too expensive. But I'm going Duke. But I think in like a season long, I'm still going Mike Davis. You're starting him against me, so I hope he doesn't do well. But
yeah, I mean, based on how they've used him, I would probably go Mike Davis. But on paper, the matchup is much better for Duke Johnson. Yeah. But yeah, you like those tight ends, or is there another tight end you suggest in draft?
So Hunter Henry's been getting pretty good target share. If you're looking for a mid-tier guy, again, Austin Hooper, 6, 10, and 7 are his last 3 games as far as targets go. I mean, if you can get that from tight end, then you're pretty happy. With tight end, I think a lot of the time, if I can't find a good value play, I like to stack tight end with quarterback. So, I mean, if you're starting like a Herbert, maybe you want to go Henry. You're not starting Baker Mayfield, but if you're going value, I think Hooper is a good value. How are you feeling about Jordan Reed at 3,500? Last week, put up a stinker, but it was his first game back. He's actually cheaper than Dwelly. So do you think his target share volume goes up? Is he someone you're comfortable with starting? He's actually 200 more than Logan Thomas, but has a better matchup. So,
well, I was going to start Jordan Reed in our main league over Logan Thomas, and then I got cold feet this morning, dropped him, pick up Damian Harris, because you just can't trust him. I mean, even New Orleans has been, I think it's like 7th worst against tight ends season long, but I read earlier in one of the sit-start articles, I think they said that the Saints have only allowed like 5 receptions to tight ends over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember the exact time frame, but they've been a lot better against tight ends than what it shows season long. And we expected. I know Jordan Reed was apparently banged up last week, he gets hurt all the time. So even if you do start him, there's a chance he might leave the game early. So if you're desperate, yeah, you can go Jordan Reed, but it's just against the Saints. I don't really trust it. But Ben Brown's got, I think, 2 questions for us, I think it came through twice. But DFS Flex, 7K budget. Chubb, Fuller, Woods, or someone else. Already starting Goff and Cup. Aaron Jones.
So this is one I think, sometimes you can get kind of cold feet about leaving money on the table, in DFS. But I think if it's how your roster shakes out, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think I like Woods and then Chubb. What do you think?
I mean, I normally don't like starting 3 players on the same team, especially 2 wide receivers.
I didn't even see you already starting Goff Cup.
Yeah.
So probably, yeah, if you're starting Goff and Cup, then I would go Chubb.
I think I'd go Chubb too. But like I said, I think there's a chance Chubb is limited today. But
I don't know if Cup got 20 targets last week, but Goff also threw the ball 61 times. I don't think he's throwing the ball 61 times again. Who do you like more out of Cup and Woods? I mean, I think that's something we could look at with that question.
I'm fine going Cup unless I'm sure Woods is probably cheaper. So if you want to go Woods and then use even more of his budget.
Because if you go Woods, I mean, you can start a guy like Keenan Allen, or you can almost get to Stephon Diggs and Michael Thomas. So, I mean, if you can pivot, cut to Woods, and then grab Keenan Allen, I like that. I think I like that better than Chubb, Goff, and Kupp. I think I like Goff, Woods, and Keenan Allen more than the other. So,
Yeah,
I always find the tinker.
I'm fine with Goff, Kupp, and Chubb, but like I said, if you want to go Woods instead and get a different guy, that would work too. But the last pick I've got for this week, defensive wise, is New Orleans. I think against the Niners, against Mullins, they looked incredible last week against Tom Brady and the Bucs. So for $3,000, I'll take the Saints.
Yeah, I like the Saints this week based on the price, and I think the Giants could be an interesting play. I mean, they're I think $300 or $400 cheaper than the Saints, and they're playing against Philly, and Carson Wentz turns it over like 3 times a game. So I think isn't the game total for that game like 30 or something? I mean, it's pretty low. So
yeah, in our main league, I've got Philly's defense, and the guy I'm playing has New York, so it could be good for both of us.
Yeah, or it could be, if you can get 10 points out of a defense this year, I feel like you're pretty happy with that, and I think both of them have the potential for that. I don't think they're going to do a lot, but I don't think the offenses are going to do a lot either. So that's usually good for having a safe floor.
Yeah, streaming defense usually works a lot better for me, but this year it really, besides the 1 week I played it, the Colts and they were playing the Lions, had a few scores, I think. But other than that, it seems like I'm starting an NFC East team's defense almost every week because they're playing each other. And usually I think like 2 times this year we've played kind of like the matchup I have today. It's been like Washington and the Giants, and the other guys got the Giants. But yeah, pretty much anybody playing those NFC East teams, you can bank on some points from the defense.
Yeah, agreed. I was trying to look here and see if there's any even lower than the Giants value plays, but I don't see that because you're not in Detroit, you're in Minnesota, you're not playing Arizona, so. Yeah, I think the lowest I'll go is probably the Giants. And I think people play Houston just based on the weather, but I mean, I think that's a trap because even against Cleveland, that defense is not good. So you're not saving that much relative to what the production you're going to get. Honestly, though, with defenses, like, it's been kind of just toss them in a blender and then pull one out and see which one's still intact, It's kind of like tight end. If it's not Pittsburgh or the Ravens, then you're kind of just a toss up. And even the Ravens, I mean, they've had as many single digit weeks as they've had double digit weeks. So it's a hard position to predict for sure. Just like kicker.
Well, we'll kind of open it up here if anyone's got any last-minute questions about lineup or season long or anything like that. Playoff strategy, since playoffs are what?
This is going to be my playoff strategy.
3 weeks away, I think we got till Matt's already planning his trip to Hawaii or wherever he's going during the postseason.
Yeah, luckily, in our second league that we got going, there's still a chance there if Eckler could get back healthy anytime. But yeah, it's it's bittersweet when some of you guys are probably like me. You're 3-6 or whatever it is, and I think 2 of my games were I lost by 5 or less points, so that that could be the difference. But you can't. It always feels like down years are the longest, because I mean, I know you, what was it, 4 years ago, you were last in the league and the next year you won the league. And so it can always turn around. You just have to wait a year, but it's still fun to be a part of it. And that's why I think the emergence of DSFS has been so good, because even if you're out of it in like a fantasy league, you still have a chance in daily and be a part of it. So,
yeah, and places where they're opening up sports books like Tennessee, they just recently, I'm not far from the Tennessee border. They finally made it legal. So everyone's been betting on the Masters and stuff and college football here in Tennessee. And it's just, it needs to just be legalized everywhere. I shouldn't have to drive 20 minutes across the state border so I can go bet on DraftKings sportsbook. So they've also opened it here. The closest casino to where I am is probably like Murphy in North Carolina. So you can go and bet on live sports there. They've got a whole section where you can watch the games and stuff. So that stuff makes it a lot more interesting when you're able to bet on that kind of stuff. If you're out of it in fantasy, like Matt said, and like doing the daily stuff. Of course, there's also playoff pools that are fun to do. You pick your players, and if that team gets cut, you don't have that player anymore, and it's just kind of like a survivor type thing. So those are always fun to be a part of. But yeah, it always sucks when your main league or whatever is just really
down in the dumps.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's pretty deflating because.
And usually those years where you're not competitive, it is, a lot of times it is bad luck or injury. So, can't get too down on yourself as a manager, but, it is what it is. And
what strategy do you take when do you like the tanking strategy for a better pick, or do you like playing spoiler?
I like the tanking strategy if you're going to lose, getting the better pick. Unless it's like, it depends on how your league does picks too. Our league is where if you get last place, for example, you get first choice of picks. So you can choose any of we have 16 teams. You can choose 1 through 16. You have free pick. But then again, there's also the risk of, if you pick a certain spot and you have divisions or something like that, then people, later picks, you get more of a choice of, the managers who are good and who are not in your league, and you can kind of pick your division based on that. So, I think it is good to be competitive. If you have absolutely no shot of playoffs, I'm not saying bench your whole lineup. Don't be that person. Field the lineup, and chances are, if you are already in a 3-6 or a 2-7 area, even your starting lineup is probably someone else's tanking. So,
yeah, I know the year I was doing my best to get the top pick, I fielded a lineup, but it was not competitive. I know one week I started like all Falcons players or something, like backups, and like the last game of the season, I think I did that. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to kind of wreck people's, chances. Like if you had a long time rivalry with somebody and you're trying to kick them out of a bye week or something for the playoffs. But other than that, if you don't have a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a last place punishment, then there's really no reason not to tank. I mean, a lot of people hate to hear that, but in fantasy sports, really the best strategy. In real life sports, I think that sets a bad precedent, obviously, but in this kind of thing, I think it's warranted. Eric Smith says he basically answered earlier, but Drake, Edmonds, or DJ Dallas, half-point PPR. I think I'm going Drake if he's healthy. I don't like Dallas's. I don't like.
I mean, Drake coming off a questionable tag with we need to check him in pregame warmups. Yeah, I guess if he's active, I would go Drake. Because like we said, DJ Dallas is going to be very touchdown dependent, and that could be a high volume passing game. So, Yeah, I'm fine with Drake there.
And this gentleman says, start one. Could be also a lady. Sorry about that. Start one running back, one wide receiver, Fournette, Edmonds, Landry, or Deontay Johnson. I'm going to have to go Fournette and
Deontay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go that with the weather with Landry, probably.
Deontay is getting great volume, and he's healthy, so.
And then Brady or Watson. I'm going Watson even despite the weather, just because he's got a better matchup than Brady.
Yeah, I'll go Watson because he might run more this game with the weather.
Yeah. Ben Brown says start one, sit one. NFL football 1 p.m. schedule or the Masters.
Well, right now in the Masters, it's looking like Dustin Johnson's kind of running away with this thing. The Masters only happens once, so how about start both?
Luckily,
2 TVs.
Luckily, the Falcons are on bye this week, so I'm going to have Red Zone on one and the Masters on another. So, let's see. We answered that one.
Checking in on the Masters, Tiger Woods put up a 7 over on a par 3 12th. He put up a 10 on a par 3.
Yikes. DJ Dallas or Jalen Rager? I like DJ Dallas, I believe, just with.
You said you like Rager?
I like DJ Dallas, I think.
Yeah, I like DJ Dallas just because they're adding more mouths to feed in Philly.
He said also Lamar Jackson or Herbert. I think Herbert because Lamar's been underwhelming, and also he's playing the Patriots. So,
yep.
All right, everyone. Well, we got 4 minutes till kickoff. Probably less than that. We got, I think, 3 minutes and something. So, it's been fun. I love all the questions. I think this might be the most questions we've had, and it'll probably continue climbing. The closer we get to playoffs. So, I enjoy it. Don't forget every Thursday on Reddit, we do the Sit Start article. We come on Reddit at 8 a.m. posting that and answering questions. We try to get to all of them, and we do for the most part. Also, we've got all kinds of other great articles, beating the spread and Eric's rankings every week. Trying to think of some others. There's a ton of content on QB List. So, again, you can find me on Twitter, RAY_DUR. You can find Matt Dean QB List. And then, of course, give us a follow on Twitter as well on our main account. I think it's at the QB List. And I think that's all we got. We may have one more question here. Tanyan or Rudolph, no other tight ends available. If Tanyan's healthy, go Tanyan. He's been very unpredictable, but I like him better than Rudolph.
Yeah, Tanyan for me.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday.
Been fun. See y'all next Sunday. See you on the Sit Start article later this week.